Imagine waking up one morning and the digital world is just off. Well, on October 20th, 2025, that's pretty much what it felt like for millions of people. Your favorite apps, your smart home, even your bank, poof, they all went dark. And no, this wasn't just some random glitch, it was a massive outage at Amazon Web Services, or AWS. So today, we're going to dissect what happened, why it matters so much, and what it tells us about the surprisingly fragile world we've built.
You know, this quote from Corey Kreider just absolutely nails it. We tend to think of the internet as this huge, sprawling thing that can't be broken, right? But this one event, it just pulled back the curtain and showed us the truth. When one single company has a bad day, the lights really can go out on the whole modern economy. It's a serious wake-up call about how centralized everything has become.
So, what did this digital earthquake actually look like for everyone on the ground? Let's piece together the timeline of that totally chaotic day.
So the trouble actually started brewing in the dead of night, around 2:40 a.m. Eastern. But by the time most people were grabbing their morning coffee, the digital world was already starting to crumble. You can see Reddit just lighting up with outage reports, and then a couple hours later, it's Snapchat's turn. For 16 agonizing hours, Amazon's engineers were in an all-out scramble to fix this. It wasn't until almost 7 p.m. that things finally got back to normal. That's an entire workday just gone.
And just look at this domino effect. This wasn't just one little corner of the internet. It was pretty much everything. The social media you check first thing in the morning, the smart stuff in your house like Ring and Alexa, your Netflix binge, even how you pay for things with Venmo. And for work, forget about it. Zoom, Slack, all silent. It's just such a stark reminder of how many companies, big and small, are all building their houses on the exact same foundation. And this quote from a writer at Tech Radar, it just perfectly captures that strange, quiet moment of confusion when the tech we rely on just vanishes. Suddenly your doorbell doesn't ring, you can't see who's at the door. And it's way more than just an inconvenience, right? For millions, this is a security issue. It's a perfect example of how a massive, abstract cloud failure becomes a very real, very personal problem right on your doorstep. And here's the real kicker. This whole global catastrophe, it started in one single place. The U.S. East 1 region in North Virginia isn't just another data center. Think of it more like a main artery for the entire internet. It's one of the most critical pieces of digital infrastructure on the planet. And when it stumbled, it created this massive single point of failure that took a huge chunk of our online world down with it.
Now, a failure like this isn't just about us being frustrated and confused. It's measured in cold, hard cash. Downtime is incredibly expensive, which is exactly why the tech world is so obsessed with reliability. Just to put a number on it, a similar outage cost businesses an estimated $5 billion. Let that sink in, $5 billion. When all the financial services, the online stores, the tools companies use to operate just grind to a halt for hours, the losses are astronomical. For some of these companies, we're talking millions of dollars lost every single hour they're offline.
And this is why the entire industry is laser-focused on this one key metric, availability. It's actually a simple idea. It's just the percentage of time a service is up and running properly. You'll often hear people talk about it in nines. So when someone boasts about 5 nines availability, they mean their system is designed to be online 99.999% of the time. You know what that works out to? Just over 5 minutes of downtime in an entire year. That's the goal.
And under the hood, it all boils down to this pretty simple ratio. For every valid request a user makes, like trying to load a web page or send a message, did it get a successful response? This isn't just math for engineers. It's basically the report card that tells you whether a cloud provider is keeping its promises to its customers and to you.
So, because things do inevitably go wrong sometimes, businesses have to have disaster recovery plans. And those plans are built around two crucial questions. First, the recovery time objective, or RTO. Basically, how fast do we need to be back online? Is an hour okay, or does it have to be a minute? And second, the recovery point objective, or RPO. This one's all about data. How much of it can we afford to lose? Is it okay if we lose the last hour of transactions, or does it have to be absolutely zero?
And this table here, it shows you how those goals turn into a real-world business strategy. So your bank's main transaction system, that's got to be platinum. It needs to be back online in minutes with pretty much zero data loss. But say an internal company website, that might just be silver. It can handle being down for a few days. The higher up you go on this chart, the more complex, and you can bet, the more expensive the solution gets.
Okay, so all of this leads to the really big question. How do we stop this from happening again? Let's take a look at the strategies being developed to try and build a more resilient internet. And it all comes back to the core problem we talked about earlier, putting all your digital eggs in one geographical basket. Even a massive one, like AWS US East 1, is still just one basket. It creates this incredibly dangerous single point of failure. The only real way forward is to make sure you're not totally reliant on any one region, or maybe even any one company.
So, to build this resilience, companies are really focused on this three-part multi-cloud strategy. First, you have to make your applications portable. That just means you can move them between providers like AWS, Google, or Microsoft without a total rewrite. Second, you got to automate the failover so traffic gets rerouted to a healthy cloud the instant a problem pops up. And third, you can use different clouds to deal with all the different global rules about where data has to be physically stored.
And there are different ways to do this, different levels really. Think of it like a tiered emergency response. You could have a really targeted response, where just one broken piece, like a database, switches to a backup. Or you could go bigger, where a whole app moves over. Then you get to the really serious stuff, where a whole group of connected apps fail over together. And then there's the big red button option, move your entire operation to a backup region. Each step up is more powerful, but also way more costly and complex.
So all these really complex solutions, they definitely sound like progress, but they also raise a much deeper question. By trying to engineer our way out of this problem, are we actually making the system more fragile in the long run?
So which one is it? Are all these fancy failover strategies and multi-cloud setups actually making the internet stronger? Or is our ever-growing reliance on just a tiny handful of tech giants making the whole system more vulnerable to one single catastrophic collapse?
And here's the paradox that must keep engineers up at night. If you just look at the raw data, the cloud is incredibly reliable. I mean, AWS and Microsoft Azure are hitting uptime numbers well above 99.99%. These systems are true marvels of engineering. But because so much of our digital lives now runs on them, those incredibly rare moments when they do fail have a devastatingly huge impact. The system is somehow more reliable and more fragile than it has ever been, all at the same time.
And you know, experts are absolutely sounding the alarm on this. Professor Madeline Carr basically says we can't ignore the huge risk we're taking by concentrating so much of our critical digital infrastructure in the hands of so few companies. The individual parts might be strong, but that doesn't mean the whole system can't come crashing down.
Yeah, and this is no longer just a technical debate for nerds. Governments are now starting to treat these cloud providers like their critical national infrastructure. The UK, for instance, has actually considered labeling Amazon a critical third party. That would put it under the same kind of regulatory microscope as the big banks. Why? Because they've realized a cloud outage is now a direct threat to the entire financial system. The conversation is officially moved from the server room to the halls of power.
And that leaves us right here with this final critical question. The cloud has given us incredible things, unbelievable innovation, but as we continue to build our entire digital world on top of just a few ever bigger clouds, are we actually building a more resilient future, or are we just creating a bigger, more spectacular single point of failure, a taller house of cards where one wrong move brings the whole thing tumbling down? It's definitely something to think about the next time your favorite app won't load.